Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. This time I just wanted to do another series similar to some of the other series I've had in the past, but I wanted to do a couple of videos on some of my favorite covers. Like I've said, I've done videos like this in the past, but I still like to just give myself any excuse to go through some of the boxes, short and long boxes, to pull out some really cool books that on occasion I don't get a chance to look at or look through. So here we go. Here I managed to pull out quite a few. Now with this particular, like I said, I'm going to make a couple of these videos. So with this mini series, if you will, I'm only going to pull one book per title. So for instance, I'm looking right now at this one. Here we are. Daredevil number 131, the first appearance of Bullseye. I've always loved this cover. Now, like I said, for instance, Daredevil, I will only choose one book per video from each series. So this will be the only Daredevil book you'll see in this particular video, and so forth. So, why is this one of my favorite covers? Is it one of those covers that's absolutely stunning, that is really, really famous? So, it's obviously a well-known cover, but I don't think it's really anything special as a whole. It's special to me because of a couple of reasons. Going back to my comic book origins, when I first started to become a real full-time comic book collector, in 1993, I had the Marvel Masterpieces cards, first series by Joe Jusko, and I remember seeing the back of the Bullseye card and seeing this cover, and I thought that this was a cover that really, popped out to me. I love yellow covers, yellow background or whatever it is, and I really thought that this was a pretty cool cover, one that I've always remembered, and that's why it's on in this video, on this list I have here, and all this other stuff. So yeah, definitely one of my favorite covers. Let's go on to the next one. I think this is on a lot of people's list. Let me just make sure you can see this. Well, I'm doing this, as you can tell, I'm doing this video old school. I'm sure you would much rather see more of the book than me and the book. So here we are, the Mighty Thor, number 337. Classic cover of Beta Ray Bill. It's just still, I think, one of the more highly regarded covers from that run. Still memorable, and also it introduces a very memorable character in Beta Ray Bill. Definitely a book that I enjoy looking at, the cover, and both the outside cover and the inside art. Now here we have, this is my low-grade copy, but then once again, another one of my favorite covers. Superboy, let me see, you got a little bit of a glare there. Yeah, maybe unavoidable. There we go. Superboy 68, the first appearance of Bizarro. Again, my introduction to this cover, my introduction to the love for this cover came from The Dark Book, a book that was put out by Wizard Magazine. I believe it was 1993 or 4. I don't remember which year. But anyway, The Dark Book focused on comic book villains, some of the more memorable comic book villains, and they would show some scenes in which the characters showed up in their first appearances or throughout their appearances in any comic book series. Well, this is one of the covers that they showed in that book, and ever since then it always stuck with me. I thought it was always very creepy. Here we have Bizarro, who looks very much like a Frankenstein version of Superman, and I've always thought that that made it very memorable, and definitely a book cover that I would have loved to have added to my collection back then. Just happy to have it in my collection now. Yeah, one day it'll be on it's on that list for upgrades. Here we go. Here's another one. Another one that I think is very popular, well known, X-Men 101, first appearance of the Phoenix. Definitely a captivating cover with the phoenix rising out of the ocean, almost like a rebirth of the character. And it truly was a rebirth of Jean Grey. The personification of the phoenix is very, very well drawn here on this cover. Someone's rising from the depths of the ocean with new life. Definitely a cool cover, and definitely gave Jean Grey a whole new level of character. It gave her a whole new level of that character. That I think Jean Grey sometimes early days was just sort of there. She was the female of the group, so she was sort of there. But with this one, they really gave her a whole new look, and it really made her a more memorable character. Here's another one that I don't think too many people are going to argue with me with. The classic Rainbow Road cover, Silver Surfer 4, Thor, what it looks to be trying to fight off the Silver Surfer's attack. Classic cover. You would find this on I think really anybody's list of classic covers in their collection. Super happy to have added this to my collection a few years back. It's very dynamic, very colorful, and a lot of those, Silver Surfer, I think the first series, which this is a part of, had a lot of great artwork, and this cover is absolutely no exception to that. Next one, Vault of Horror number 28. Always had a fascination with this cover. When I started reading comics back in 1990, I was familiar with this cover, even though I was unfamiliar with the actual number. This was reprinted in an oversized format, like the book I showed you several videos back when I did my Reflection of Death review for from the Tales from the Crypt movie. This was also one of those oversized books, and I've always wanted to get it, but I could never find it back then. So many years later, to be able to get this copy, the true copy of Vault of Horror with this cover, the bondage cover, the zombie cover, is just so fascinating to me. The actual cover was very fascinating. I'm so happy to actually have it in my collection. This is the cover story to Till Death, which was made into the second season episode on the TV series, the HBO TV series. Now, here we go. Another one that I don't think anyone could disagree with. Now, like I've said many times before, I'm not a big Romita fan, okay? But even I recognize the value of this cover, the classic cover. It is also the first appearance of the Kingpin, but that, is almost overshadowed by the actual cover. Spider-Man No More. What is that about? And I think it's just really well done. It's simple. It's amazing that, such a cover that is so highly regarded for comic book cover collecting fans and so forth, yet is so simple, but it captures the imagination of the story of Peter Parker turning his back to being Spider-Man, and truly a gem to have. It's another book that one day I want to upgrade. Now here's a book that I added to my collection this year, finally. Like the Till Death cover of Vault 28. This was another oversized reprint back in the early 90s, and I was very familiar with it back then. And I could not wait to get my hands on this book this year. I said it to myself that, yeah, I'm definitely going to go after this book. The HBO second season again, Lower Berth TV series. That's the cover story. It's the origin of the Crypt Keeper. But aside from that, any EC fan will tell you this is probably one of their favorite covers from the Tales from the Crypt series. Classic Jack Davis cover, as the Crypt Keeper's father is climbing out of the embalming solution, ready to make love with, I think her name was Myrna, the Crypt Keeper's mother, and as she's, putting her hand behind her head, trying to create a sexy pose and all that. It's such a great cover, such a memorable cover. We're getting down to the wire. Got 3 more books, and that'll be it for this episode. Kamiko Primer. Again, a very, very simplistic cover. I don't think this cover is necessarily on anyone's top 10 or top 20 list of favorite covers, but for me it is. I was always fascinated with the character Grendel, even way back in 1993. And when I finally got this book several years ago at the New York Comic Con, it was a treat because although as much as I like yellow backgrounds in covers and yellow and red backgrounds, I also like black backgrounds. And my copy here is a very, very high grade copy, so I think that only adds the beauty to books that have a black background. And once again, a very simplistic cover. It's not that, it's nothing that really necessarily pops, but for me it does. And it certainly belongs on this list. 2 more. Of course you would know that this is one of my favorite Batman covers of all time, the classic cover swipe of Detective 31. And, from my logo here, look who's here. It's the same thing. So you must know that this would be on one of these videos from me. Love it. Love it, love it. Detective 31, classic cover. This swipe, classic. It's a little awkward having Robin over here. It seems to take a little bit away from the cover, in my opinion. But still, awesome cover. I like the way the fog creeps in, as it did in the original cover of Detective 31. But I think Batman looks a little more ominous here, as he appears as a ghostly image over the mansion. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. Classic Neil Adams cover. And the last one for this video. Here we go. Shock. Shock Suspense Stories. Number 6. Bondage cover. Bigot cover. Whatever you want to call it. It's there. Wally art. Classic. I was lucky to get this book I got it last year, but you didn't see it until this year. But matter of fact, I think I got this about a year ago around Thanksgiving. But like I said, whenever I usually get books, you don't see them for several months later sometimes. Anyway, again, I was familiar with this book, the cover of this book, way back in 1990. As a matter of fact, this is another one I tried to get. It looked like it was a very interesting story, and it was. So when I was able to finally get this book, I enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed reading the cover story. I don't remember the name of the cover story. But also another little interesting thing about it is once again, the second season. It seems to be the second season I got going here for this particular video. But the second season of Tales from the Crypt, the HBO TV series. The story in here actually was the first episode of the second season, the one with Demi Moore and Jeffrey Tambor, Dead Right, comes from this book. So, classic cover, wonderful to have in my collection. So thank you all for tuning in and going through the list of books here, the covers that I think really stand out for me in my collection. And I hope to do another couple, another few videos like this. I hope you join me again for those videos. And take care, everyone.